Cheers and welcome to Irondale Brewing. It is Brew Day, which I'm really excited about. I have the day off of work. I'm just going to take it nice and slow, nice relaxed brew day. It may take me 8 hours or something because I did zero prep work because I was slammed with work stuff right up until yesterday. So we're just going to take it nice and slow and work the process and have a good time. Today I'm going to be brewing the MoreBeer Holiday Hops IPA kit, which is their take on Sierra Nevada Celebration Ale. One of my favorite beers, not even just holiday, just beers in general. I love this beer. Well, I don't know if I love this one yet. I'm sure I will. I love Sierra Nevada Celebration Ale. Look forward to it every year. So when my Brewzilla conked out on me and MoreBeer sent me a replacement very quickly, so thanks again to MoreBeer, they said, hey, for your troubles, pick any one of our beer kits and we'll send it your way. So I decided to go with the Holiday Hops IPA because, I've never tried to make a clone of Sierra Nevada Celebration Ale. I did look around, and their recipe is pretty much in line with all the other ones I looked at. Cityscape Brewing, I'll put a link to his videos, really has it dialed in and compares them side by side, and he thinks he really nailed it. And this is pretty close. They all vary a little bit, all the recipes I looked at with the hops and stuff, but it's all kind of in the same ballpark for sure. So this one comes with 12 pounds of two-row, pound and a half of Crystal 60, a half a pound of Carapils. And for the hop schedule, it's 1 ounce Chinook for 90 minutes. I don't know if I'm going to do 90-minute boil. I'm going to kind of check the alpha acids and see what it does, the IBUs and whatnot. And then an ounce of Cascade at 30 minutes, half ounce each of Cascade and Centennial in the Whirlpool at for 30 minutes. So I'm going to do probably 170 for that. And then a half ounce each of Cascade and Centennial in dry hop. And I'm going to ferment with BRY97. I really have been enjoying that. You could use, USO5 or any of the kind of Chico strain yeast would be great. The Cellar Science one, I've had good luck with that one as well. Anyway, so I'm excited to get going on this. For this brew day, I decided I like improving my process kind of as I go. So on every brew day, I'm kind of like, could I do this better? Could I make this simpler, less of a hassle, whatever? I have 3 specific things I'm going to try today. So the first is crushing the grains. I've been getting kind of 62, 65% efficiency on my batches when I was doing brew in a bag on my stovetop or my induction cooktop. I was getting more like 80%. So the Brewzilla has been quite a bit lower. And again, I don't care per se, but for this kit, I think the MoreBeer kits, they assume you're going to get 70% efficiency. So it seemed like a good opportunity to just like triple check my mill settings. I'll probably mill twice and see if I can get a better crush to up the efficiency a little bit. The other thing that I think is related to my efficiency is the volume of water. So I think my estimate in Brewfather for my equipment is a little bit high on the boil off. I have a gallon per hour, which seemed, I looked around, that seemed to be pretty standard. I've been hitting, kind of a little bit high at the end of every batch. In fact, the first batch I did in my Brewzilla, I was so high I boiled another 30 minutes. So I'm going to drop it by about a quarter gallon. I think I'll probably assume 3/4 of a gallon boil off for an hour, and we'll see where we wind up. Last batch, I definitely ended up a little bit high. When I was transferring the keg, I had a little bit coming out of the gas post, which not ideal. So I know I'm a little bit high on that. And again, if you're a little bit thinner, at least in my head, that makes sense that your efficiency would be a little bit lower. You got a larger volume of water for the same amount of grains, then your gravity is going to be lower, obviously, because it's more watered down. And then the third thing I'm going to try, so PID on the Brewzilla, if you haven't looked into that much, the PID settings are very dependent on, I shouldn't say very, they are dependent on the size of batch you're doing and the kind of gravity of the batch. So I've had good luck with it. I've been doing kind of more or less similar batches, but I will say the Kitten Mittens clone that I did was a little bit bigger grain bill, and the PID settings did not keep it quite as good as the first batch I did. First batch was just dead on the whole time. This one, it was, within a couple of degrees, so I'm not complaining, but I saw a difference just with a little bit bigger grain bill. And so because of that, I'm going to try not using the PID. This results from a discussion that we had in the BrewTubers Discord. And one of the members of BrewTubers said what he does is just turns the PID off for the mash, sets the temperature you want, obviously the target temperature. You set the hysteresis, which is the amount that you want it to allow it to drift to, low 1 to 2 degrees. And then you set the power to 50%. And he said when he does that, and he's been doing that a lot, he's brewed a lot more than I have, it keeps things within about a degree. So I'm going to try that and see how it works. But anyway, so those are my three things: grain crush, work on my liquid volume to get that a little bit more in check, and try not using the PID and see how that goes. And it's not that I don't like the PID, but if that works and that's consistent, and then it doesn't matter what size batch you're doing, or even the, well, I shouldn't say size batch or the gravity of the batch. You can just set it to that and kind of forget it, and it'll work. So anyway, enough rambling for now. I'm going to go get these grains crushed, and I will take a shot of the crush so that everybody can tell me how I did this time. So I'm getting ready to mill the grains, and I think the problem with this Mighty Mill 3-roller is that the markings on the knob that adjusts the gap, meaning these things, the problem is, if you watched my video where I set this thing up, you can just spin those knobs 360 degrees all day long, and they don't ever stop. So there's no minimum and no maximum, really. So when I flipped the thing, I took the grain hopper off and flipped the thing over, and I kind of just spun the knobs without looking at them to get them where they were, because the knobs move the bottom roller up towards the top two rollers. And when I got it where they were closest to the top two rollers, it did not indicate that measurement on the knobs. So I think probably what I've been doing is milling a bit too big, because I set the knob to the setting that it should, that I thought was good, which is 0.025 inches, but that is not in actuality what it was set to. So I just kind of visually did the knobs to where it moved the bottom roller up as close as it'll go to the top roller, top two rollers. And I don't know what that setting looks like on those knobs, but it's not right. So I think that probably is part of my problem why my previous crushes are probably a little bit not as fine as they should have been. So I'm about to crank this thing up, and we'll look at the end result, and hopefully it'll be better than I've done the last couple of batches. Here is the end result of the crush, and I think we are in much better shape than I've been on my previous batches. If you can just hopefully get a shot of that. I think either my mill just isn't functioning properly, or the fact that you can spin those knobs around really throws things out of whack. So my suggestion, if you have one of these Mighty Mill 3-rollers, is just ignore the settings and take the hopper off, flip the thing over, do it by visual and by feel. Get the thing kind of where you want it. I suppose now that I have it set where I want, I think you can pop the knobs out, and I could set it to 0.025. It doesn't matter. Once it's set, I'm just going to use that if this goes well. But yeah, so I think for my goals for today's brew day and specific things I wanted to improve, I think I can check box number 1, because this is a much better crush than I got in my last 2 batches. So for water additions, I don't get too much into this because I am by no means an expert, and I just kind of do whatever Brewfather tells me to do and have had good luck with that. So I start with RO water, and in this case, since this is a hobby beer, I just picked I entered in all my RO stuff into the water test I got from my RO system into Brewfather, and have a target of, I picked hoppy, and so that gives you this sulfate to chloride ratio of 2:1, and so that was a mix of gypsum, calcium chloride, and Epsom salt. And again, I won't go into that too much, but I just wanted to mention that that is what I'm doing for water additions, is just whatever Brewfather told me to do for the hoppy profile, and a little bit of lactic acid, I think 2 mils to bring the pH down to a little over 5.2. I think it's 5.25, and that should be good for this beer. I don't think it's going to focus in on that screen well enough for you to see, and it may flicker, but it's downloading a new firmware update, so that'll be interesting. Getting my water pulled together. I'm going to use the jacket this time because it's pretty cold here today, and I do open up a window to let the steam out and kind of shoot a fan over the top of it at an upward angle to keep the steam going out the window, which has worked pretty well so far, but hopefully this new firmware update won't screw me up. Letting this rest for a little bit before I start the recirculation. And just to reiterate, I hope this doesn't flicker too much. But basically, I'm trying it without the PID, using both temperature controllers, and setting the power to 50%, and the hysteresis to 1 degree. And that seems to be, this is still settling out from when I mashed in, but that seems to be settling out nicely. So I'll give it another 5 or 10 minutes, and then we'll start the recirculation and see how that goes. This is about 10 minutes later, and as you can see, it's really settled into pretty stable 150, 149.2 on the built-in and 150.2. So I think this is going to work well. I'm going to give it one last stir and start the recirculation, and we'll see how it progresses. But yeah, I'm liking what I'm seeing with this technique so far. We're about 15 minutes into the mash, and it seems to be working pretty well. I haven't seen the wrapped temperature controller, the Bluetooth one, go below about 148. And the built-in, as you can see, is kicking into gear to get it back up to 150. And of course, recirculating, think about what the average is between the two. And I think that's pretty good. So yeah, I think this might be a better process than using the PID. And certainly if it holds true that you have to adjust the PID based on kind of your volume and batch and the amount of grain you're using and all that, this will be definitely better, because this would just, it's a dumber process, but it might be a little bit less finicky, and you wouldn't have to adjust it every time. The sound of the mash draining. So yeah, that temperature and power setting seemed to work really well, kept it super stable. Like I said, I had good luck with the PID also, so that's just an alternative way to do it. I will probably do that. It's simpler, more straightforward, and is less dependent on the variables of your batches. So there is the bag draining. I'll just let that, it's coming up to a boil. Wow, very quickly. I think that the jacket really helps too. This is the first time I tried it. I got it when I got the Brewzilla originally, and just hadn't tried it yet. And it is really making a difference in terms of keeping things insulated, keeping things hot. And that is, especially given the chill in the air, got the windows open, it is coming up to temperature very quickly. So I will mess with some stuff and check back in when we're boiling and hopping and all that good stuff. So we're coming up to a boil. I thought I'd check the volume, and at least judging by you probably can't see it, but judging by the marks on the kettle there, I am still a little bit high, because that mark, let me look at it a little more closely, bear with me. I think that mark is right below 8, and Brewfather was saying I should be more like at 7. So we'll see. We'll see where I wind up. I can always just boil longer if I'm a little bit high, but I'm going to proceed as if it's going to be okay. And once it hits boil, I'll give it a few minutes to settle, and then we'll throw in the first, or the boil hops, the only boil hops, and that is an ounce of Chinook. Got a very nice boil going. It seems pretty stable. The nice thing about having this Brewzilla be like twice as big as I normally need for most batches is you can't boil over. So here goes an ounce of Chinook in a bag, because I like to use bags. Another thing I keep promising myself I'm going to use and never do is the carrying strap for the Monster. This time I remembered, got it out, got it all untangled, got it, I think it may be inside out, but it works either way. And that should save my back a little bit, moving it from the floor when I fill it from the Brewzilla into the fermentation chamber. I could always wheel the Brewzilla into the garage where the fermentation chamber is, but that seems a little bit worse. So, and it's not terrible doing it without the strap, but this will make it a lot nicer. We're halfway through the boil. I can't say boil. Time for the Cascade Editions. An ounce for 30 minutes. Fly-free little hops. Well, not that free because they're in a bag. And every time I think, it'd be fun to try sometime, is brewing outside. Crazy weather like I'm having right now. You probably can't see, but it just started pouring out of nowhere. So I'm glad I'm inside. We have about 15 minutes left in the boil, so I threw the wort chiller and the Whirlpool arm in there because we were going to do a half-hour Whirlpool. So I'll see how quickly it chills just by turning the heat off. I may
that chiller is so fast that it would probably go to 170 super quick. But maybe I'll just give it a blast to get it down to 170 quickly, and then set the target temperature on the Brazil at 170, and then we whirlpool a half ounce each of Cascade and Centennial, I believe, if I remember correctly, for 30 minutes. Nothing too terribly exciting here, but for the sake of completeness, this came with the kit. It's basically Whirlflock. I thought the name was funny. So we're going to use this one because it is 5 minutes out. And then we start chilling down to 170 in a Whirlpool. Into the boil, so I'm just going to ramp this down to 170 for the Whirlpool. I did run some boiling work through the Whirlpool arm to make sure that was clean. And then I probably will just zap it with the chiller just for a second. Yeah, I like if you hold it down so it's going really fast. Okay, so we're getting close. All right. Okay, so we'll see. It's going pretty quick since it's cold, but I think I will zap it just for a second, just to get it down to 170. So, lesson for the future: I stopped it at about 175. Shut the wort chiller off, and it kept going down to 160. So I'll get it back up to 170 here, and then we'll get this hops going. I think the volume is still pretty high, which is kind of interesting. We'll see what I end up with in the fermenter, but yeah, so I don't know if I need to adjust my grain absorption ratio as well, because that's, but we'll see where we wind up. All right, we're back up to 170. Didn't take long. That Bruzilla has quite a bit of power. So now I'm going to throw the half ounce of Cascade, half ounce of Centennial in, open up the valve, and hit the pump. And hope I didn't make any errors in connections here. Oh, yeah, that's right. Okay, pump is on. I don't see anything moving. Oh, there we go. You see some movement over there. We'll see how this clears up. I thought about doing the Whirlpool hops not in a bag, but I don't know. I just went with what I'm used to. I think it'll serve the same purpose. But I think this is the first time I've whirlpooled. I've done hop stands before, but I've never actually whirlpooled before. So hopefully this will go okay. So I wound up with a rather bizarre, the Whirlpool hops I threw there in a bag wound up in the middle of the wort chiller, and it's got a little hop fountain going. I'm debating whether I want to sanitize some tongs and maybe pull it out of there. I don't know that it's going to matter. I may, because it looks and feels like there's a lot of hops that are exposed up top that we're not going to get the benefit. So I think I will do that. Just thought I'd take some video. I think it's pretty funny. Yeah, that makes me feel much better. They sank, so we'll get more hop utilization for sure. And we're at the end of the 30-minute Whirlpool. So, time to turn on the wort chiller. You don't need to watch this, but it'll happen quick. It's only 50 degrees outside, which means the groundwater is going to be pretty cold. And I got the fermenter all sanitized, got my dry hop sack and magnet situation all ready to go. So, yeah, I think we'll just chill it down and we'll get a shot going into the fermenter. Hopefully the display doesn't flicker, but I just thought I'd take a shot of how quickly things are chilling down. I don't even have the water pressure on full bore because it tends to get a little crazy spraying the wall over there if I do that, but still pretty fast. So we'll be in the fermenter very shortly. All right, we got down to 68 and I shut the wort chiller off. It's still chilling, so it's down to 66. Put the sanitized recirculation arm back in there. And so I'm gonna start the pump here. Gets it nice and aerated going in there. I'm going to be curious to see where the volume winds up. Luckily, I turned it so you can kind of see. Excuse me, this is the 5-gallon mark there. So it looks like we wound up with exactly 5 gallons. So that was actually interesting. I think I need to take the dead space more into account when I'm calculating this stuff too, because what I wanted was 5.5 gallons, but that's into the fermenter, but that's okay. It's better than too high. And that also should compensate for the fact that I did a 60-minute boil instead of a 90-minute boil, make it a little bit... But now for the moment of truth, I'm going to get my stuff. Well, I'll get this sealed up with the dry hops and all that stuff, and then I will take a gravity reading. That's what I'm most interested in terms of this brew day, is what my efficiency worked out to be. Okay, since everybody loves to see this part, pitch in the yeast, BRY 97. OG was 14.9 bricks, so I need to do the math on that, and I will update in a second here. And there it is in the fermentation chamber, ready to do its thing. Got the dry hops up at the top there, ready to drop, with 5 days left in fermentation, and that green thing you see in there is the wrapped pill, team pill, forever, and blow off tube and the usual stuff. So I still didn't look up the gravity, but I will do that and put it on the screen, and we'll do a little wrap up here in a second.
It's now the day after brew day. I thought I'd do a little bit of recap. I did one yesterday right after I got done brewing, but I think because, the chaos of the end of brew day and getting some cleaning going and things just didn't come out how I wanted it to, so I'm going to take another run at it today. And I also thought of a couple more things I wanted to mention that weren't in my head yesterday. So in terms of the stuff I wanted to change or focus in on / improve on this brew day, it was my mill setting to get a better crush, the fill level, my kettle. I was trying that different, not using the PID in the Brewzilla, instead of using PID, just setting the hysteresis to a degree and letting it go. And I think, and then efficiency, which is directly related to some of these other things. Those are the main things I wanted to focus in on. In terms of overall process, this is a very smooth brew day. I, started from scratch, and it kind of took all day, but it was kind of a nice, relaxed way to do a brew day, which was kind of nice. In terms of the mill, I think I can check that box for it's dialed in now, and I'm getting a nice crush. And the efficiency, I was hoping would go up more than it did. So I'll talk about that for a second. The MoreBeer kits, as I said, assume 70% efficiency. I got 65%, so it was supposed to come in at 1065 original gravity. Mine came in at 1060. Not the end of the world. I was hoping for a little bit better, but I think it'll still come out fine. It wasn't wildly off or anything like that, so I think we'll be good there. The fill level, and here's where the people who probably were, maybe this didn't come out in the video, but immediately after I got done brewing, I'm like, I made the cardinal mistake of trying to follow the scientific method, that I changed two things at once. So with a finer crush on the grain, my assumption is, and I've not verified this with anybody who knows way more about brewing than I do, or even just the internet at large, I'm assuming that means more grain absorption, or more water absorption by the grains. So changing those two things at once, lowering the fill level, finer grain crush, I wound up with 5 gallons in the fermenter instead of 5.5. Again, not the end of the world, but that's I'll probably go back to assuming a gallon of boil off. And see how that goes next time with the finer grain crush, because then I'll only be changing, one variable at that point. learn a little bit more the next time. That different heating process without using PID, I like that a lot. It is a dumber approach, but I think it's going to be more effective in terms of I don't have to worry about, if I'm brewing a bigger grain bill or a higher volume batch, I don't have to worry about if the PID settings are going to be right. That seemed to hold the temperature pretty darn steady within about a degree or two the whole time. And, for me, anything that's simple and does the job, I'll take that any day over something that's more complex. And in this case, I think probably unnecessarily complex and has a lot of variables that you'd have to worry about if you want to keep doing things that way. So I was happy with that. And I think that covers the major things. Overall, it was a successful brew day, I think. I think as far as my efficiency goes, I do want to talk about that a little bit more. My assumption at this point, given that I've done the malt pipe and the bag in, I guess, 4 batches total in the Brewzilla now, and I've been getting, I started with 62, even with a pretty crappy grain crush, and now I'm getting 65 with what I think is a very good grain crush for brewing a bag. I don't know that I'm going to get better than that. The obvious answer to get higher efficiency, if I want to go this route, would be to sparge. I don't think I want to do that right now. I think I'm going to stick with this process for a little while. Maybe someday I'll want to get a sparge kettle and start going that. It'd be fun to try anyway, because I've never done that. I've always just done brew in a bag, or a million years ago when I was doing more brewing, I did more extract than anything else. So I think I'm going to stick with the process I have now, and as long as I know I'm going to get 65-ish% efficiency, adjust the grain amount of grains to use accordingly, and I should, start hitting my numbers a little bit better. But again, I'm not totally unhappy with how this has been going so far. That the 1065 versus 1060 isn't the end of the world. So anyway, that's what I learned from this brew day. The beer seems to be fermenting happily. It's stuff starting to happen. The gravity's dropped just a couple of points so far, according to the pill, and hopefully we'll get a tasting of that here in a few weeks. So we'll see you for that one. Unless I drop, I may do the canning video, redo the canning video, because I have some beer that could use some canning. So I'll take another run at that one. It's not going to be so messy, and we'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching. Cheers.